There we go. We seem to be live in front of at least a half a dozen people. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another biotech recruiting chat. I am your host, James Ellis, as per usual, because that's really the only person who does this sort of thing. And with me this week, I am thrilled to bring in Shaun Vigeant from Intellia. I got all those syllables correct. Hopefully, that's a lot. There's a mouthful. Let's not lie. That's not nothing. That's a whole sentence right there. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is employer branding. Actually, I'm lying. It is my favorite topic. It's not even a question. Over at Intellia. So, Shaun, why don't you start by just introducing yourself to anybody who doesn't know you yet?
Awesome. Thanks, James. Appreciate the time to be on here. I love talking about this branding work as well, something I'm very passionate about. So thank you. So my name's Shaun Vigeant. I am the Vice President of Talent Acquisition over at Intellia Therapeutics. I've been doing this recruiting thing for just over 18 years now, which is scary to say.
You're a babe, yeah. A babe, woods, a youngin', a noob.
Yep, pretty soon it'll be 30 years. So I've been doing this for over 18 years. I've been with Intellia for about 6.5 years, and then I was at a large biotech just before here. So I've been in the industry for quite a while. For those of you that aren't familiar with Intellia Therapeutics, so we've been around for about 9.5 years, and we are a full spectrum genome editing company, and we utilize a technology known as CRISPR, and we take a full spectrum approach to our science. It's very exciting times. We are a clinical stage company, so we have two clinical programs that are in human trials. So we're really excited about the future. Thank you.
Honestly, the word clinical trials, human clinical trials, always deserves a tiny little round of applause because of the gamut that has to come with that. So yes, congratulations on that.
It's totally awesome, and we're really excited about it. So that's a little bit about me and Intellia.
So I reached out because you, even on your LinkedIn profile, you care about branding, which of course is just setting off green flags for me, left, right, and center. So as a company that's still an emerging biotech, right? You're not at a Moderna size. You're nowhere near a Genentech size, right? You're still scrappy. You're still a couple hundred people. How do you decide and how do you broach the conversation of employer branding, especially when so many leaders, when they think of employer branding, they assume Roche, they assume Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca, like massive Merck, Pfizer kind of size companies, and not an emerging biotech. What's that conversation look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I can bring you back to when it started. It was right before COVID, and COVID had nothing to do with it. It was just the timing of everything. I remember talking to my boss, and when she had joined, we had a new head of HR come in January of 2020. And I remember one of the things I said to her was, no one knows who we are. But one of the things that you're going to find, and what I would always tell candidates as we were interviewing them before they came in and before they joined the company, was it's a special place. It's a really special place. We have great people. And when you come here, you're not going to want to leave. But no one externally knew that. We hadn't defined what made us special, what made us unique.
That's a great line. That's a great question.
So that's where the conversation started with my boss, and then with the leadership team, and then just people across the company to say, we need to define what makes us so special as an organization and figure that out. And it starts with our employees and really ends with our employees. So we set out to figure that out. And what we did was I didn't want this to be an HR or corporate comms driven initiative. Needed to come from the voice of the employee. So we brought somebody in from the outside who specializes in this work. And what she did is she met with 60, 70, 80 of our employees, which is a huge sample size at that time. Did focus groups and gathered a bunch of information. And I kind of led the project from the background. And what came out of it was what we tell the outside and what we look for externally now in terms of our employer value proposition and our brand and who we are and what makes us unique.
So did anything come out of that process that was surprising? I mean, when I do employer branding, I very often say things like, look, I'm holding a mirror up to you. If you see anything surprising, I think I may have made a mistake. But at the same time, the way you present the company back to the company is often interesting and engaging. So what was surprising in your process?
Yeah, I think there's two things that were surprising. The first thing that was super exciting to me was one of the ways that we kicked this off for the company was at an all hands meeting. And we said, hey, we're going to be doing this exciting work, and this is what it means, and this is what what's involved in it. And I said that we're going to reach out and tap many of you to see if you'd like to be a part of this process and this project. And so we reached out to, it was like 70 or 80 people, like I mentioned, and we had 100% participation rate.
Nice.
No one said they didn't want to participate. Everybody was like super jazzed and excited to be a part of it. And then we had several people that weren't tapped that still reached out proactively to say, I want to offer my insight. So that was the first.
And these aren't people who are bored. These are people who are literally editing genes and start inventing the future. They got a day job.
Yes, they are. They are working on the future of medicine, what I believe to be the future of medicine. So super exciting from that perspective, just to get that much involvement. So that kind of validated my thinking that this is a special place and our people are special.
Yeah.
And then I think the second thing that came out of it, that I don't want to say it was like shocking or anything like that, but one of the real surprises, one of the core things that our people embody here and embrace here is this notion of like social activism. And their job is really important to them, and doing right by the patient and doing our science, but they're super passionate about doing things that are going to better the world, whether it's environmentally, socially, you name it, go down the list.
Yeah.
So that's something that we also harness as an organization. I didn't necessarily expect that to be sort of one of the big themes that came out of this work.
Yeah. So given that you're in the Boston, Cambridge area, which is, let's be fair, the first biotech hub of the U.S., second being South San Francisco, I'm always on this kind of like teeter-totter of, does employer branding matter in a situation like that? When, look, you can jump into a company because the barrier of entry is low. I can say, look, I'll move from wherever to this area and try this company, because if it doesn't work, there's literally hundreds of companies in a similar vein, a similar size, where my skills are very much in demand. So it's a super low risk venture. But at the same time, the need for you to differentiate against those same hundreds of companies who are similarly sized, doing similar work, who all say CRISPR just the same way as you do.
Yep.
So tell me about that thinking of the value of employer brand in terms of differentiating you against those companies, but also allowing you to attract beyond the bubble that is Cambridge, Boston.
Yeah. Awesome questions. I would start by saying, it's one of the cool things about doing this type of work and really mapping out what makes your employees successful and what excites them every day is that you can go out and recruit people that share that same mindset or embody that same stuff, right? So to use your example about, you could the economy, the market right now is not as great as it was, but let's rewind a couple of years ago when we were doing a lot of this work, it was crazy. And to your point, you had companies throwing money, titles, everything at people to get them to go there. But what people, I don't think, were screening enough out of candidates, and what candidates weren't screening enough out of the company is, tell me about your employer brand. Tell me what makes you unique. Tell me what makes your company different. Tell me what makes yourself special. And figuring out, okay, that does align with my values or who I am as a person, or it doesn't. I think people were just jumping into jobs, and then they keep jumping because they're not fulfilled. So we've been able to leverage our brand and our job descriptions. It's on our website front and center. We don't hide from it at all.
Yeah.
Right. It's integrated into everything that we do. We named our podcast after one of our core talent pillars. Like we own it and we love it and we embrace it. And I think when people come to join us, they know what they're getting themselves into and they know what it's going to be like. And I think that's why people are so fulfilled here.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to this idea that, I think when we get down to brass tacks, recruiting is very much, you're selling this thing that may or may not exist. What a recruiter says, how a recruiter describes a job, especially in biotech, recruiters are not biochemists. They can't actually explain all this stuff. So you're kind of taking it on faith. And so having an employer brand that establishes yourself and that you build on to create this credibility, I imagine that credibility changes the math and how you approach people, who engages with you, how long it takes to get them to go, yep, I buy it. This makes sense. I like what's going on. I believe these things you're saying. It's not just a bunch of claims recruiters having. Is that what you're seeing, or what else are you seeing?
Yeah. One of the things I do I do interview training at the company, and I help out with onboarding many weeks. And one of the things I always tell people, that is amazing to me, and it speaks to the culture, is that when I'm interviewing people, I'm usually last at the end of the interview. Like the rest of the interview team goes first. And one of the questions that most candidates ask a company is, what's the culture like? What's
Yeah.
it like? What's a day in the life like?
It's good.
And
Next
it's good.
question. Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, and that's what most companies will do, or a
I
lot of
know.
companies will do, right? It's fun. We're collaborative. We get along. You'll like it here.
Yeah. There's beer.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much deeper than that here, and I think it's so cool because I'll ask people at the end, and what they'll tell me at the end of the interview is every single person that I interviewed with that I asked that question to said the same thing. And we're not coaching them to say anything. We're not putting a script in front of them. Like they're describing the culture and the environment as they see it. But because we've been able to hire so many people that, again, embody those similar things, people speak the same way. So employees have a really good feel coming out of the interview process. Then when they join, they see it firsthand. And one of the other cool sort of side things that happens when you do this really well and you're authentic to who you are is that your employer referrals go through the roof.
Yes. The flywheel changes. Like the more you say your thing, the more you attract to people who want that thing, which means the more you are that thing, which means, and it just flywheels.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
So when you started the EB process, and let's be fair, employer branding is in EVPs is buzzwords, total buzzwords, right? Harvard Business Review has turned it into check the box, you got bingo, there you go. So when you brought the idea of needing employer branding, EVP, however you want to frame it, to leadership, I presume there was a question of how do we justify? How do we measure it? What's it gonna do? Right? It's not magic pixie dust. You don't sprinkle it on and make everything magically better. But what's it do? And what was that conversation like? Like, how are you thinking about the major value of an employer brand is X, and how do you measure that?
Yeah, it's funny. I vividly remember the conversation because we were in the office. It was before COVID, so it was an in-person meeting, and I was not an employer branding expert by any means. So I was kind of figuring it out as I went too, but I knew it was really important and I knew it's something that we needed to focus on. So like with anything, our leadership team here is very data driven. I think most leadership teams, especially at biotechs, are very data driven. So one of the things I did is I just went across the social media channels and just showed all the activity that we had. And it wasn't much.
Nice.
It was, you want to know why people don't know who we are? And they do know who company X or company Y is. Look at what they're doing on their website. Look what they're doing on social media. Look what we're doing, aka not much.
Yeah.
That's where the needle will start to move. And it was funny because I remember the CEO asked. He said, "How are you going to know if we're successful?"
Love it. Here we go.
And
here's the money. Here's the money.
I love this answer because it's. I said, it's just going to feel different and it's going to be very different. Yeah, not a great answer, but he's like, okay, I trust you. And then I remember a couple of years later, he said to me in a meeting, you're right. It feels totally different here now.
Wow.
People are all over social. People are engaged. People are banging down our door to come work here. We have become the company that everybody wants to work at as opposed to the company nobody knew anything about.
Yeah.
And we look at data on LinkedIn and we look at data across all of our social channels. But initially, that was kind of it. It's like, it's going to feel different and we're going to see our followers on LinkedIn go up. I presume we're going to see our Glassdoor presence go up substantially. We're going to see our traffic to our website go up substantially. And all of those things were like tenfold improvements.
Yeah, I mean, if I can put words in your mouth for a second, I apologize. What you did is you created desire where there was no desire. And I think that is the thing where in TA, we're so used to just, please apply, please show up to this interview, please, I'm begging you. Like we're always coming from this position of weakness. But when we increase desire, when people want to be here, it changes the conversation completely. It's not begging. It's not even, anything like that. It's simply about, let's have a peer-to-peer conversation so that you know what you're really getting into when you show up. And the downstream effects of that are you stick around longer, you're bringing more value, all that good stuff. But it does kind of start with that idea of desire.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things I've noticed is that very often while TA is driving EB, recruiters are usually not the first ones to go, yay, employer brand, right? They're a little slow to kind of embrace it and to see the value of it. And we could get into all sorts of different reasons why, but that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
But what was it like to bring employer brand thinking into a recruiting team at Intellia?
So I think we were lucky on the one hand that at that point in time, we were a much smaller team. So there was like a small circle of people. And I had recently, sort of as we were going through the final stages of this work, so we had kicked it off in probably April timeframe of 2020. And I knew I was going to need someone on my team who had more of an expertise in this space, because I wasn't going to have the time or the bandwidth, or again, the expertise to be able to drive it throughout the business as somebody else would. So I hired somebody who leads this work for us, and she has somebody on her team that really is helping create a lot of the content and bring this forward. So with them on board, and then with the recruiters, we just had a lot of conversations about, this is what it means. This is how we're going to weave it into our process. This is how we're going to get it into our job descriptions. This is how we're going to incorporate it into our interviews. And I'm very lucky. I have just an excellent recruiting team. And we've hired some really, really good people that if we have an idea or we're doing something as a team, everybody's all in it together.
Nice.
And I don't necessarily get met with a lot of resistance. Whereas in a past life, to your first point, recruiters can be very set in their ways and sort of stuck in how they've done things and just want to do everything that way moving forward.
Yeah.
It's very, very different here. And that's why I really believe I'm lucky enough to work with the best talent acquisition team that you could have.
Nice. Can we give a shout out to your employer brand person?
Yes. Her name is, so there's two of them. So Maritza Makowski she oversees the team. And then Ellie Kalamkaritas is the one that's doing a lot of the awesome work that you see on our website and on social.
So can you reveal anything, like the next thing employer branding you're going to be doing? Or because I know so much of what employer branding does looks on the outside simple, small, but it's that, it's just a drop of paint. But when you take 4 steps back and you realize, oh, it's this magnificent canvas and it's telling this huge story. So what's next for Intellia in terms of employer brand? What are the initiatives or the projects or the ideas you're going to bring forth?
So I think there's a couple of things that are sort of in the pipeline. We recently brought on a new platform. It's called Culture HQ that we're very excited about. And we're going to be incorporating that into our website, the Life at Intellia page. So
that's video, right?
Yep. Well, it's video and still images. It's a combination of a lot of different things, which is really cool. We're able to build it right into the middle of our Life at page. So internally, we use this platform. It's almost like a social media platform where employees can we queue them with questions, and they can create their own questions and post a ton of content and interact, and then we can integrate that into our careers page. So you'll be able to really get an in-depth look from the voice of the employee on our website. So that's coming soon, and then we're making some other pretty big enhancements to our careers page. We're going to add a brand new diversity-focused page that will incorporate a lot of this stuff, which we're very, very excited about because we're doing a lot in that space as well. A lot of exciting work there. And then we're continuing to just think of creative campaigns that we can do on social media that I think are different than others. We're moving our podcast. I get to this platform that we're on right here. Mm-hmm. We actually purchased a license as well. So we're moving our podcast for this new season 4, over to video. So we're very excited about that. I think hearing from our employees has been very exciting in the podcast, but now being able to hear and see them in this type of way, I think will be very, very helpful for our brand. So more to come, but we're always brainstorming on new and creative things that we can do.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. Podcasts are big, but at the same time, I don't hear a lot of people embracing them internally. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're doing something interesting there. I'll go look for it. I'll track it down and see what I can find. That'd be very cool.
Imagine the possibilities.
Imagine the possibilities. Fantastic. Yep. Shaun, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for answering my goofy questions. Nice to meet another employer brand fan. So thrilled that we could put this together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And we'll try and see you next week for another biotech recruiting chat. Bye.